The Israeli military has launched a new wave of attacks against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon after 2 days of device explosions that left the Middle East fearing an all-out war. Fawaz Gerges, Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and he's on the line now. Fawaz, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, we can talk about the ethics of what the Israelis did in terms of the pagers and the walkie-talkies, but parking that for a moment, is it clear now what the Israeli plan is?
No, I don't think we have any clarity. All we know is that the Israeli army is preparing for all-out war against Hezbollah. They are intensifying their bombings of Lebanon. The explosions, the pagers and the walkie-talkies probably represents one of the most significant escalation by any state against its enemy anywhere in the world, not just in Lebanon. We are seeing a qualitative shift in the Israeli attacks. I think Benjamin Netanyahu seems to be marching to war against Hezbollah. And the reason, Pat, the reason why I'm a bit concerned and anxious, the U.S. yesterday said it's afraid. It used the term, it's afraid and concerned of all-out war on the northern front between Israel and Lebanon. Well, look, if the United States, the most powerful nation that feeds the war in Israel, it's the most important ally of Israel, is afraid, it tells me that the Americans seem to have failed to influence the decision-making process in Tel Aviv.
Well, what Netanyahu is exploiting at the moment is this interregnum when we have an election underway in the United States and no prominent politician can criticize Israel. They keep saying, no matter which side they're on, that Israel has the right to defend itself. And therefore, the current administration is not going to say it will limit supplies of armaments to Israel until the election is over.
Absolutely. In fact, to try to answer your question, last night, some key U.S. officials privately have said, quote unquote, this is public information, that they don't believe there will be a ceasefire in Gaza before the end of the Biden administration terms in January. It seems to me that Benjamin Netanyahu and his extremist religious Zionist coalition are basically gambling that Donald Trump will recapture the White House, and Donald Trump has promised to give Netanyahu and his extremist far-right coalition members a green light to do whatever they want. So what Israel is trying to do not only is exploiting this particular vacuum of power, because President Biden, as you know, is really a lame duck now, and he cannot do very much because he is unwilling to use any leverage. He has been unwilling to use any leverage. So I think what we're seeing, the reason why we are concerned, there are multiple signs pointing to the fact that Israel is trying to use this particular moment in order to really trigger all-out war against Hezbollah. The Americans fear, and they are correct, that a all-out war against Hezbollah will most likely escalate into a wider regional conflict. Really, we are at the tipping point now, Pat. As you know, we have been warning about this tipping point for the past 11 months. We have reached now, I mean, it will take a political miracle to de-escalate the situation. And we all know, the Americans know, the British knows, the Irish knows, everyone, that without a ceasefire in Gaza, the situation that could really escalate into a wider regional conflict. And that's it. This is the moment. And the qualitative escalation, I mean, imagine you have more than 5,000 people who are basically either killed or injured in the explosions. According to the UN High Commissioner of Human Rights and multiple human rights organizations, these are considered war crimes. People in shopping centers, people in hospitals, medical workers, children. I mean, it tells you a great deal. And I've been really barking for the past 11 months. It tells you a great deal about the criminal mentality of the ruling elite in Israel and how far they would go to basically stand down their enemies or their foes.
Now, the IDF, does it have the capability to continue the war in Gaza and also operate a significant incursion into Lebanon? Because what they've been doing overnight, they tell us, is that they've been targeting the sites of either rocket storage or rocket launching.
Oh, Pat, this is the most important question, really, that I really would like to spend a minute or so highlighting. I mean, I think Israel has, vast, massive firepower. Israel does not have the capabilities to take on Hezbollah in a ground attack. Even though Israel is really accumulating tactical advances and victories, strategically, Israel faces a strategic dilemma. And the strategic dilemma, it wants to change the rules of engagements on the northern front with Hezbollah, yet without really launching a ground attack. And this is by itself, it tells you it does not really have the manpower. It does not have the political will. It does not really have the capabilities. Look, and time, I hope this does not come to materialize, to be triggered. Israel could start a war against Hezbollah. Israel will not be able to end the war on its own terms. Hezbollah is not Hamas. Lebanon is not Gaza. Hezbollah can count on hundreds of thousands of fighters from Syria, from Iraq, from Yemen, from Afghanistan. This will be a war. Israel will never, never have peace and security if it launches all-out war against Hezbollah, because Hezbollah will fight for more than a decade. And in fact, Israel's overarching aim is to return the 60,000 displaced people to the Israeli-Lebanese front, even though there are about 150,000 Lebanese who have been displaced. But they can never, ever return if war, all-out war, basically is triggered between Hezbollah and Lebanon. And this is the predicament of Israel, and this is what the United States has been trying to tell the Israelis. Hezbollah also has a strategic predicament. Hezbollah has basically bound its hands because it does not really want to go out for all-out war. Hezbollah realizes Israel is trying to drag Hezbollah into war with Israel. So what Israel is counting on the fact that it really wants to inflict tremendous pain and tremendous casualties on Hezbollah and force Hezbollah to stand down, to surrender. But as the leader of Hezbollah yesterday made it very clear, we will never surrender. We will never cut the umbilical cord with Gaza. Unless there's a ceasefire in Gaza, unless the bloodletting stops in Gaza, we will resist till the end, regardless of the casualties. And this is why it seems to me, given the deadly embrace between Hezbollah and Lebanon and the strategic dilemmas, that's why both sides seems to be moving into all-out war, even though both sides do not really want to change the rules of engagement.
So Fawaz, what is the potential for a response from Hezbollah? I mean, are they going to just keep exhausting their supply of rockets into northern Israel? Is that the plan, rather than do anything more significant?
Well, Hezbollah really, it's amazing, Pat, how restrained Hezbollah has exercised in the past 11 months. I mean, really, on the moral plane, Hezbollah has avoided targeting Israeli civilians. I mean, strategically, its targets basically military bases and security installations, where Hezbollah does not distinguish between civilians and operational targets. So Hezbollah, in this particular sense, is willing to take the pain, but it also has the capacity to inflict a pain on Israel. And its most important card are the displaced Israeli citizens, 60,000, in the same way that Hamas strategic card are the 100 hostages or so. So this is what we need to understand, Pat. I mean, look at us. We're comparing Hezbollah with Israel. Hezbollah is a non-state actor. It's powerful, but it's not. Israel is has one of the most powerful armies in the world. It's technologically, in terms of military apparatus, nuclear weapons. It has 100 nuclear weapons. And you and I and all of us, instead of really saying, slow down a bit, this is uneven, unconventional, really, confrontation. So Hezbollah overall strategy is to really basically resist as long as it could in order to really increase the costs for Israel. But Israel seems to be really moving to a new phase that is unless Hezbollah surrenders or stands down, it will go for broke. It will go for a ground invasion, and it will bring about basically more escalation and more insecurity for Israeli citizens.
Now, Fawaz, we talked in the wake of the October the 7th incursion by Hamas into Israel and the taking of hostages and the killing of hundreds and hundreds of people, that Hamas were prepared for some sort of reprisal from Israel. They knew it would come, but it was a price they were prepared to pay and for their people to pay. Do you think that they anticipated this kind of game plan unfolding in the wake of October 7th?
Hezbollah or Hamas?
Hamas, because they were the provocateurs in this.
I don't think so. I think they probably gambled, and I'm speculating. Remember, we're speculating. They gambled that when they have, more than 200 hostages, Israel will basically, historically speaking, Israel prioritizes the return of its hostages. This government led by Netanyahu and the extremist religious Zionist members, they really don't care. And that's why you have millions of Israelis have protested in the past 11 months, as you know, because this is a government, the first time in Israel's history, that says, let the hostages die because we have a bigger strategic aim, and that's absolute victory. So in a way, Hamas miscalculated, but the reality is for Hamas, look what's to be done. They were dying anyway. Gaza Strip was basically in a state, it was been strangled and slow death. Hezbollah, on the other hand, Pat, has been preparing for this moment for 20 years, preparing for most scenarios, even though it does not really have the technological capabilities that Israel does, as we've seen. So Hezbollah is basically willing to go for the long game. Israel does not have time, because this is not how Israeli military functions. They're not used to really long-term, game fights. But the big point here is that there are no firefighters, Pat. They are arsonists. Where's the global leadership? Where is it? Tell me. Where are the British? Where are the Americans? Where is the international community to de-escalate? When the United States, basically, which feeds the war, says it's afraid of all-out war, it tells me that all-out war is coming. It's a matter of hours or days or 2-3 weeks.
Fawaz Gerges, Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Thank you very much for joining us.